fellow shadows, welcome to another video. And in this video we're going to ask or dive into the whole scenario on what I feel is a better sequel, The Last Jedi or Empire Strikes Back. Now hands down, regardless of what I say, Attack of the Clones will always be the second best Star Wars sequel in a trilogy ever. Yeah, I always said that the Attack of the Clones is my least favorite Star Wars movie out of the prequels, but that still has some redeeming value to it in the movies. Like, yeah, when Anakin, even though this scene was kind of cut short, when Anakin went on that rampage to kill all those Tusken Raiders after he saw his mother die in his arms, the whole Jedi arena. Even though this may not be for everyone, but when Yoda fought Count Dooku, them introducing the clone army, pretty much showing Anakin's, conflict between being a Jedi and struggling to cast out the dark side. They kind of show the same thing too, with the last part in Revenge of the Sith, but they kind of introduced that in Attack of the Clones. And them actually showing the first time the Jedi don't sit around just talking. At least the Jedi Council anyways. They actually do start doing stuff, as we've seen in the Jedi Arena. So that said, which one is better between Star Wars Episode 5, Attack of the Clones? Star Wars Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back, or Star Wars Episode 8. Wait, that's 9. 5, 6, 7, yeah, 8. The Last Jedi. Now, both movies are sequels from, like, the first movie in the trilogy. Last Jedi, A New Hope, was a good movie. It was the very first Star Wars movie in the film series, and it was good. It was a nice story movie. And I will say the Force Awakens was another good starter-up movie in a trilogy. Both ask some questions on, like, Luke. Like, for example, does he really ever become a Jedi? Does he really does he really ever become a Jedi? What will happen to the Empire now that the Rebels won? And there's been some more questions. Just I remember those two questions being the prominent ones when I first watched Empire Strikes Back, because I always said Revenge of the Sith was my first Star Wars movie. Then I went back, saw Episode 1, Phantom Menace, Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. Because at the time, when I got into Star Wars, Lucasfilms was to Disney, and the Clone Wars wasn't out yet. There were only like 6 Star Wars movies, 7 if you count that holiday special. But I watched the first 6 Star Wars movies, and I loved it. A new, Empire Strikes Back had answered at least some of the questions, if not all of the questions, that I had at the time when I first saw it. Of course, towards the end, it raises some more questions that was answered in Return of the Jedi, which I loved. And then, towards the end of Return of the Jedi, said, oh snap, how does Luke, what will happen to Luke now? What will happen to Leia, Han Solo, Lando Calrissian, Chewbacca, even Wedge? Now, unfortunately, in the current canon, we haven't been told what had happened to Wedge, as far as I'm aware. If I'm wrong, please leave a comment below for that. But yeah, that's when I after I saw Return of the Jedi, it left me those questions too. Thankfully, we had Expanded Universe, which explained what happened to the Skywalkers and the people that knew them that we saw in the original trilogy, like what had happened to them after Return of the Jedi. And then, like in the Thanos snap, or I don't want to say the Thanos snap, but when Disney bought Lucasfilms, the expanding universe got wiped out, and hence this new trilogy is going on. Rogue One and Solo Star Wars Story was added to canon. Plus, the Battlefront games got rebooted. So, The Last Jedi, it kind of starts with The Force Awakens. With me, I remember the questions of, who the hell is Rey's parents? Why is she so OP? Now that Starkiller Base has been blown up, where will the First Order go? Now that Kylo Ren killed Han Solo, where will his story arc go? Where will Leia go? How will Rey be trained by Luke? What exactly happened to Luke? I have some more questions. And The Last Jedi only really answered a few of those questions. And to be honest, I like Empire Strikes Back more than The Last Jedi because George Lucas focused more on story than subverting expectations. Rian Johnson focused more on subverting expectations than story. And yeah, the one that would subvert the most expectations in Empire Strikes Back is nobody thought that Vader was Luke's father. And yeah, you can say that they kind of teased Leia being Luke's sister after that fight, but already isolating to Empire Strikes Back at the moment. Yeah, that was like the biggest 360 ever, because in A New Hope, we've been told by Obi-Wan Kenobi that Darth Vader betrayed and murdered Anakin Skywalker, being Luke's father. Not 1 second did we would think that Darth Vader was Anakin Skywalker, Luke Skywalker's father. Now, I think Vader means father in German, so if you knew that, it wouldn't have really came to much of a shock to you, but still, that was literally, regardless if you knew the meaning of Vader or not, that was literally one of the biggest, most 360-ist moments, most subverted expectations ever in Star Wars history. And I've heard only outside of James Earl Jones, who did the voice of Darth Vader, that Mark Hamill, who has played Luke Skywalker, it was like the only one who knew of the set, obviously outside of George Lucas, who knew that Darth Vader was Luke's father. That and Obi-Wan didn't exactly tell Luke the truth about what happened to Anakin Skywalker. I was like, damn, okay. Okay, that was like that. I remember being extremely surprised. And then when seeing Luke deal with, kind of like, dealing with that news shortly after, especially being rescued by his sister that he didn't know was his sister at the time, was amazing. And then in Return of the Jedi, I'm bringing Return of the Jedi, kind of saw that Luke accepted the fact that Vader is Luke's father, especially after Obi-Wan and Yoda told him, and Luke still seeing the good in Vader. Now, in The Last Jedi, we saw grumpy old Luke. I always said I didn't exactly mind the grumpy old Luke as much as some other people did, because we had one more movie that we could see the Luke that we knew come back, which starts the end of the movie. We saw the more mature of Luke that we saw in from the original trilogy come back, but that was only after Yoda did this to Luke, whacking him on his nose. But what questions did The Last Jedi answer? Sure, it kind of showed us what had happened to Kylo Ren after, like, he killed his father, and Rey kind of was having a hard time dealing with it. But the whole training thing with her and Luke, she wasn't really training. It was more like, I feel like the first lesson was okay. It was great. It was an actual lesson. The second one and the third one, I felt like Luke could have done more than just talk to Rey, to be honest. And it took us to see a deleted scene to see Luke process the fact that one of his best friends had died. And truthfully, if Luke had come back to the Resistance to help the Resistance for fight off the First Order, then maybe Han Solo would have survived the events of The Force Awakens. I don't know. I doubt it, but still, could have. And it just seems like Leia was completely over Han's death. I mean, yeah, she was in a coma for half the movie, and Leia had the weight of being one of the leaders, but still would have been great to see Luke and Leia's a scene with Luke and Leia where they are grieving Han Solo's death. Guess we even got to see Leia. Well, you can say we kind of see that in The Force Awakens with Leia. We definitely saw that with Chewbacca in The Force Awakens, and pretty much The Last Jedi didn't really answer any questions I had, really. Outside of what would Kylo Ren do after he killed off his own father. Yeah, sure, it raised more questions, but in terms of the questions I already had, outside of the one question about Kylo Ren that I just mentioned, it didn't really answer any questions, especially of Rey's parentage. Yeah, Kylo Ren said that she came from nobodies, but he's a bad guy. We don't know if Kylo Ren is lying to her, or if he's actually telling the truth. Because there's some theories out there that Kylo Ren actually knows where Rey comes from, but he chose not to tell Rey. Which, if that's the case, I'm okay with Kylo Ren telling Rey that she came from nobodies but filthy junk traders. That is one of the things that J.J. Abrams can kind of save that was in The Last Jedi. But to be honest, 90% of the questions that I had from The Force Awakens wasn't answered in The Last Jedi. And yeah, I have some more questions that we'll carry on to Rise of Skywalker. But a lot of those questions I had from since The Force Awakens should have been answered in The Last Jedi. So, you guys want to know officially what is my... Oh, and The Last Jedi kind of made Leia go in a coma for like over half the movie. And yeah, even though I said I was okay with this because we had one more movie afterwards, it did make Luke grumpy. And I kind of wish that we saw a different side of Luke for most of the movie, even though I was okay with seeing grumpy old Luke. So, here's the thing. I like Empire Strikes Back over The Last Jedi because Empire Strikes Back relied more on storytelling, character growth, development. That's development. And it really only had like, one part per se that subverted expectations. That was the Vader confessing to Luke that he's his father. That, and when the Emperor told Vader that Luke Skywalker's his son. Like, holy crap. Really? Darth Vader's Anakin Skywalker? Then, from then it says, will Darth Vader ever tell Luke he's his dad? I would be okay with it if they didn't answer that question up until Return of the Jedi. That would be one of the questions where I would be okay with even if they didn't say in Empire Strikes Back. And if Vader was trying to hide it to, protect Luke, but then the Emperor slips the beans, shocks, Luke, then Emperor literally shocks Luke, and then Vader kills the Emperor like how we saw him do in Return of the Jedi. And then we could see Vader pretty much saying, I'm sorry I never told you. Or Anakin at that point saying, I'm sorry I never told you, son. I don't know, it's just... I stayed true to the characters that came before, like, episode 5, that movie. It built on their characters, showed them struggling with the, Last Jedi. We didn't really see Rey struggle all so much. Except trying to deal with Han Solo's death. But that was, like, quickly resolved. In my notebook. But, yeah. So here's my ranking of the Star Wars sequels, like, for the trilogy. In terms of Empire Strikes Back, Attack of the Clones, The Last Jedi, because now I will officially put in Attack of the Clones. Number 1 spot is Empire Strikes Back, for all the reasonings I said. Number 2, Attack of the Clones, because it served an overall story, it honored the characters that came before it, plus introduced some new characters in a really good way, and also kind of made references to the original trilogy as well in a clever way. Yeah, I feel like it's the weakest one in the prequels, but still has redeeming values. And like with the original, like with Empire Strikes Back, it was trying to deal with more of the story aspect than subverting expectations. Yeah, it has some plot holes in the movie, but I can overlook that in this scenario. So Attack of the Clones comes in second. Then comes The Last Jedi for all the reasons I said in this video about it. So, yeah. What do you guys think? Between Attack of the Clones, Empire Strikes Back, and The Last Jedi being all the second movies in its sequel Attack of the Clones being the sequel in the prequels, Empire Strikes Back being the sequel in the originals, and The Last Side being the sequel in the sequels. Which ones do you guys would say is your favorite, and which one would you guys say is your least favorite? Leave a comment below, and I'll see you guys soon. Of course, be with us all.